hosted the interviews, has a bias against the Marcoses. He also says that the ills of the past during the martial law regime, which he says his family has responded to time and again, should no longer be discussed. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Hall.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Marcos' absence from the presidential interviews might just be part of a political strategy, at least according to some pundits.
They say Marcos Jr. might just be erring on the side of caution. After all, why rock the boat when you're ahead? Mayan Los Baños has the big story.
Last Saturday, presidential candidates Senator Ping Lacson, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, Senator Manny Pacquiao, and Vice President Leni Robredo went under the microscope. They attended GMA7's presidential interview with veteran journalist Jessica Soho. Only Bongbong Marcos declined the network's invitation. The reason? Marcos Jr.'s camp believes that Soho is biased against the Marcoses. Their camp added that Marcos Jr.'s duty is to the Filipinos and not to a TV show or program host. In its response, GMA Network said that Soho only asks questions that need to be asked. This includes the aspirants' intentions behind running for the position, controversies thrown at them, stand on issues, and their platforms. According to political analyst Jean Encinas Franco, GMA's interview was a missed opportunity for Marcos Jr.
There's the growing perception that he cannot explain his side on various issues and that, he lacks substance.
After his absence, #MarcosDuwag became a top trending topic on social media. But his supporters retaliated, calling Vice President Leni Robredo the same. That's after she failed to attend DZRH's presidential interview. But she clarified that it was just a scheduling issue.
Nung lumabas kasi yun kagabi, ako yung nagsabi sa staff. Sasabi ko, bakit natin ni-reject? So ang sabi nila kasi hindi tayo pwede dun sa schedule na binigay. Okay. So ako yung nagsabi sa kanila na bakit hindi nyo tanungin kung pwede tayo dun sa schedule na available tayo. So I think nag-usap na sila kanina. Nag-usap na yata sila kanina na nasa Dipolog do kasi ako kanina, pero mukhang naset na yung schedule na February 2. So all good dahil nabigyan pa din kami ng pagkakataon.
For Franco, Marcos' supporters might just be trying to change the narrative.
That's part of the effort of their camp to sort of revise the narrative that has been generated by Marcos Jr.'s non-appearance.
For the presidentiables, the interviews are big help for them to lay out their plans.
Yung tao naniniwala sa mga sabi-sabi. So dahil nanggaling sa akin, opportunity yun.
As for Senator Ping Lacson, he said that he thinks he did well in the interview despite having just recovered from COVID-19. Lacson earlier defended Soho from the Marcoses' claim over her alleged bias. Reporting for News 5, Mayan Los Baños, we are One News.
Despite missing out on GMA7's presidential interview, former Senator Bongbong Marcos already has several interviews lined up for him. An hour ago, Marcos had an interview on 1PH sa Totoo Lang, and to talk about what they discussed, we have one of their hosts, News 5 correspondent Maricel Halili. Good evening, Mase.
Good evening, Robbie.
Sabi niya wala siyang inaatrasan, but he did not show up for that interview with Jessica Soho. Did you get to ask him about it? Anong sabi niya?
Yes, we asked him about it earlier, Robbie. And in particular, what can he say about the #Marcos Duterte, #MarcosDuwag, which became a trend on Twitter just a few hours or a day after the presidential interview of veteran journalist Jessica Soho. Senator Marcos said that he is not duwag because in the first place, he actually accommodates several interviews from the media. He just doesn't want to entertain journalists who he calls as biased. So we asked, what does he mean by biased? Ang sagot niya lang, it simply means anti-Marcos. We also asked, how did he say, or how did it come up with the idea that some journalists are anti-Marcos? Sabi niya lang, he already experienced it in his previous interviews because they kept on asking questions, negative questions about the Marcoses. For him, issues that happened 35 years ago must not be discussed now because it's in the past.
Oh, sinabi niya, I saw that report. He said, we must move on. Let's not talk about things that happened in the past. Notwithstanding that, knowing you and Jovi, naitanong niyo naman siguro siya sa mga ibang issues na karap sa kanya. Pandarambong ng tatay niya, yung pagiging diktador, human rights abuses, tax evasion cases. Did you ever get to ask him about these things, and what did he say?
We asked him how can he convince those martial law victims to support his administration if ever he wins as president of this country. And sabi niya lang, he will simply convince these people by simply giving or explaining his plans for the country. He will, or sabi niya, he will promise that he will do anything that he can to improve the situation in our country. And kung hindi daw maniwala itong mga to, wala na raw siyang magagawa. All he can say, all he can do is to explain what he plans to do for the country.
Okay, now Mase, this is not from 35 years ago. In fact, this story was also trending over the past couple of days. In fact, even today, sinabi niya, tinanong siya, paano yung salin? Are you willing to upend the policy there, and will you release your SALNs? Naitanong niyo ba yan sa kanya?
Yes, we asked him about the SALN. Apparently, it's a complete turnaround of what he said during the interview also with Sa Totoo Lang last year, roughly around October of last year. He said that he was willing to publish his SALN for transparency. But when we asked him earlier about it, he was a bit defensive when explaining that because he said that he already explained that issue. And he's a bit concerned that his SALN might be used by some political critics or might be used against him in politics. So it seems that he is not willing to publish or to make public his SALN anymore. Ang sabi niya lang, if there's a case that will be filed against him, he's willing to give his SALN before the court. Other than that, hindi na kailangan na i-public pa.
Okay, maraming salamat, Maricel Halili. That was News 5 correspondent Maricel Halili, who's also host of 1PH Sa Totoo Lang. But apart from Marcos, another aspirant, Leody de Guzman, was not present in the interview for a very different reason. He was not invited to begin with, as the network only invited those ranking high in surveys, the top 5 in particular. But One News gave him the platform to bear his plans should he be elected president. De Guzman initially took to Facebook to talk about his platform, but was later interviewed to talk about his stand on same-sex marriage, divorce, and foreign ownership. For De Guzman, it's about time that we acknowledge same-sex marriage. De Guzman also says he is in favor of divorce, but when it comes to 100% foreign ownership of public services, De Guzman says no. According to him, all candidates should be given equal chance by media to lay out their platforms.
Una-una, medyo nalulungkot dahil nag-i-expect kami na magkakaroon ng pag-iimbita sa amin dahil batay sa Comelec resolution na dapat bigyan ng equal na airtime yung lahat ng kandidato. At pangalawa, naniniwala ako na yung ating media ay may demokratikong space dyan at papalayo na doon sa personality politics, ika nga. Pero mukhang nanatili pa rin yung ganon.
These are the other big stories tonight. COVID infections in Metro Manila appear to have reached its peak, says Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, prompting talks of a possible de-escalation to alert level 2. And not only do they want the Comelec to reverse its decision, petitioners seeking to cancel Marcos's candidacy want the body's second division to inhibit in the review. And an emotional win for undefeated Pinoy boxer Mark Magsayo as he dethrones reigning champion Gary Russell Jr., bagging for himself the WBC featherweight belt. These big stories after the break.
lumalabas ng peak na at nakikita natin ilang araw ng sunod-sunod na bumababa ang kaso ng NCR at lumiliit ang porsyentong iniaambag nito sa ating total case load.
You heard Health Secretary Francisco Duque saying cases in NCR have already peaked. But he says a revert to alert level 2 is not yet on the table. Health experts are still waiting for other indicators to go down as well.
Duque says that Metro Manila's 2-week growth rate, average daily attack rate, and health utilization rate also need to go down. Outside NCR, Octa Research logged record highs in COVID-19 growth rates in 7 provinces. That's including Mountain Province, Ilocos Norte, Davao del Sur, Apayao, Iloilo, Ifugao, and Cebu. Each province is said to have more than 100% one-week growth rate.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Indeed, cases have been on an uptrend in the provinces, something that's already apparent in Agusan del Sur.
Scenarios in COVID hospitals there are reminiscent of the Delta surge, with some patients waiting outside emergency rooms. Jem Avancenia with the story.
This 72-year-old COVID patient was gasping for air while being intubated outside the emergency room of Democrito O Plaza Memorial Hospital in Agusan del Sur. He was temporarily placed here while waiting for vacancy inside the critical care unit, which is currently filled with patients. His daughter, who is looking after her, also got infected with the virus.
Sa ginugit-ugot. Inaalaw na ng Diyos eh. Ano pa magagawa namin? Masama daw pakiramdam niya. Inuubo siya. Di na makahinga. Kapag lalakad siya, pag tumayo, di na siya makahinga.
The 62-bed facility at the back of the hospital is also in full capacity. Manpower was not spared. 25% of the hospital's workers are currently in isolation after getting the virus, affecting the facility's operation.
Our hospital healthcare workers are being affected with the COVID-19 facility in every hospitals. More than 100% nasa capacity yung ina-admit. Our fingers not to get into the critical stage sa mga patient, but we do not know.
Other COVID facilities in the province are also full of patients. This is one of the reasons why Agusan del Sur's LGU is now planning to impose stricter quarantine measures. Another problem in the province is the shortage of medicines, particularly paracetamol. Some pharmacies say supplies have already run out since last week.
Ngayong week may dumating na stock pero kaunti lang, limited lang. Naubos din after 3 days.
The Provincial Health Office says the Omicron variant may already be here in Agusan del Sur, but official figures have yet to confirm this, as the LG is still waiting for the test results for the specimen they sent to the Philippine Genome Center.
We need to assume that Omicron is already here in Agusan del Sur. Yung complacency natin in wearing mask properly, wala na. The vaccine itself only give us 70 to 85 or 90% of the immunity. Para sa amo ang magod sa health, the remaining percentage should be up to the people how to protect themselves.
For News 5, Jem Avancenia, we are One News.
A new subvariant of Omicron has been detected in the United Kingdom. Health Secretary Francisco Duque says subvariant BA2 is still a variant under investigation. Based on initial reports, the subvariant does not differ much from the original Omicron variant. Duque says that based on limited data, current vaccines should still work.
For the big story in sports, over the weekend, Filipino boxer Mark Magsayo joined the elite list of Pinoy boxing champions after beating Gary Russell Jr. for the WBC featherweight title. Marty Bautista has the story.
Judges Mark COC and Henry Grant, they both scored the bout 115 to 113 in favor of the winner. And you!
Boxing fans watching in Tagbilaran City Hall's free viewing were ecstatic after Mark Magnifico Magsayo's rousing win against American Gary Russell Jr. Magsayo defeated Russell via unanimous decision in New Jersey, effectively ending his almost 7-year reign as WBC featherweight champion. Russell aggravated his right shoulder injury in the 4th round. Despite this, the American still believes he should have won the fight, but some experts say otherwise.
I do believe that he should not have taken the fight. They could have easily picked another fighter to replace Russell and labeled it a battle for the interim or temporary WBC title, with the winner fighting a healthy Russell later on.
Boxing legend Manny Pacquiao himself also lauded Magsayo for his victory. Magsayo is now the 5th active Filipino to be crowned champion. The win keeps Magsayo's record unblemished through 24 fights. At this rate, some are saying that he could be the next face of Philippine boxing.
This is just his initial reign as world champion, but he offers a very exciting style. In fact, people are saying that he punches with homicidal tendencies, the same way a young Manny Pacquiao did. So people are excited with what the future holds for Mark Magsayo.
The Tagbilaran City native hopes to continue his solid outings and move up to higher weight classes, racking up more belts. But for now, Magsayo is bent on enjoying his hard-earned win. For News 5, Marty Bautista. We are One News.
Former Foreign Affairs Secretary Roberto Bobby Romulo has passed away at the age of 83. He passed away last Sunday. Romulo joined government in 1989 when he was appointed ambassador to Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Commission of the European Communities by then-President Cory Aquino. He went on to serve as DFA Secretary under the Ramos administration. Romulo was also chairman of various corporations and NGOs, and he also held a board membership in PLDT. Recently, Romulo joined other former cabinet members in backing the presidential bid of Vice President Leni Robredo. Romulo's cause of death has not yet been disclosed, but many continue to remember his legacy online.
Time for another quick break. When we return, other than seeking the reversal of Comelec's decision, petitioners calling for the cancellation of Marcos's candidacy now want members of the 2nd Division to inhibit. And just when we thought they were about to patch things up, pole vaulter EJ Obiena backs out of mediation talks, saying Patafa continues to act in bad faith. And the long wait is over. Hardcourt action will be back next week as the PBA resumes its games. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Did you know that TESDA has been offering COVID courses?
Not just that, these pandemic programs have been some of the most in-demand courses in the agency. Mobile journalist Judy Baiza with this report.
Who would have thought that with the pandemic comes new opportunities to earn? And TESDA, or the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority for one, has been offering courses on COVID management.
Yung mga kurso naman natin because of the pandemic, and then din yung COVID-19 contact tracing level 2 natin. Isa sa mga programa ito na naglalayo na maging kontribusyon ng TESDA sa tinatawag nating nationwide of government approach.
Apart from the contact tracing level 2 and barangay health services, TESDA also launched 10 more COVID-19 management courses under its TESDA online program. There's also a course on how to prevent COVID-19 transmission in the workplace, timely now that many are returning to work.
Ano po yung mga itinuturo doon?
Ayan ma'am, nandyan po lang yung mga ayun kagaya nun, yung sa mga pag-PPEs, kung paano yung mag-dispose ng mga like paano yung properly disposal ng mga face mask, yung mga ginamit natin during the preventive ng COVID-19 po.
These programs have already raked in 360,000 enrollees. While there's no age limit, majority of takers are from 18 to 34-year-old bracket, especially since there's no required schedule for course completion.
Yung duration po ng training nila, nasa kanila po yun kasi modular po yan siya. So anytime po na gusto nilang continue yung kanilang training dun sa online, pwede naman po.
Majority of enrollees are still from NCR, but there is also a growing number of takers in Central Luzon, Calabar Zone, Central, Western Visayas, and Bicol Region. For those who wish to enroll, just create an account at e-tesda.gov.ph. Once you have completed the course, you'll get a certificate just like this. TESDA encourages everyone to take up their free online programs, especially now that cases are still on the rise. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
Civic leaders represented by lawyer Ted De file a motion for partial reconsideration to cancel the certificate of candidacy of Marcos. Petitioners asked the Comelec Bank to reverse the ruling of its second division and asked that the poll body exclude Marcos's name from the list of official candidates for president in the ballot. In their motion, petitioners say they will not refute the second division's finding that representation in item 11 and box 22 of the COC are material, but assert that Marcos deliberately attempted to mislead, misinform, and deceive the electorate. Petitioners have also requested the mandatory inhibition of the members of the second division from the on-bank review, citing, quote, bias on the part of its participants.
And here are the other big stories around the world. One surrendered Hong Kong hamster has tested positive for COVID-19, and officials are struggling to contain an outbreak that has been traced back to a pet store. While a handful of these small rodents have tested positive for the virus, this is the first case that involves a domesticated pet. More than 2,500 animals, including hamsters, have been humanely dispatched as the city lockdown grows. Meanwhile, the U.S. has ordered family members of diplomats to leave Ukraine as American officials brace for an aggressive move from Russia in the region. The Department of State has authorized the volunteer departure of U.S. direct hire employees and their eligible family members amid a looming Russian military threat. In a travel advisory, the department says Ukraine borders are unpredictable and can deteriorate with little notice.
Another big story in sports, Filipino pole vaulter EJ Obiena has officially withdrawn from the mediation process offered by the Philippine Sports Commission. In a Facebook post, Obiena said that while he appreciated the offer of the PSC, he believes that Patafa is only using the mediation as a means to silence him and to keep the truth hidden. Obiena also described entering into mediation with one party in bad faith as, quote, a recipe for failure. And in response to Obiena's statement, PSC Chairman Butch Ramirez said he was saddened by this development, but he reiterated that the agency has not withdrawn its mediation offer. Meanwhile, as COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila start to slow down, the PBA Board of Governors has unanimously agreed to resume the Governors Cup by the first week of February. According to PBA Commissioner Willie Marshall, the league is already waiting for the go signal from the government and concerned LGUs for resumption of scrimmages. Once approved, the PBA will give each team 10 days to scrimmage before returning to action.
A new word puzzle game has taken the internet by storm. If you've seen your friends or family posting yellow, gray, or green boxes on social media, that's because of Wordle.
The game has become such a huge hit that several brands have already started to ride the wave. For example, Grab Philippines referenced the Wordle tile score in a previous promo. Customers who can get the word right gets 59 pesos off from their orders. McDonald's Philippines likewise referenced the tile blocks on its post about fries.
So how does the game work? Every day, players can go on the website after midnight. And then you can try and solve the 5-letter word in only 6 tries. After each guess, yung color ng tiles will give you a clue, di ba? So if it's green, it means nakuha mo yung letter, it's there and it's in the right place. If it's yellow, you have the right letter somewhere in there but it's in the wrong place. Pagka gray, wala. Hindi, mali yung ano mo. Several celebrities have already started posting their Wordle scores for the day. One tip as well, never share the answer. That's true. Never share the answer until the day is done. Kasi 1 word a day lang eh.
Tapos lahat kayo huhulaan ninyo. After midnight.
Usually midnight, they post the new, and mukhang it's sensitive to your time zone. So midnight dito, midnight talaga.
Na-addict ka na rin ba sa Wordle?
Hindi ka ma-addict because it's only once a day. So it's really just fun. It becomes a habit.
Question lang, meron bang bonus kapag pinost mo? Because I don't understand
wala.
People, they just want to share.
Yes, I think part of the fun is just sharing. And the thing is, you can only share or you should only share how you did. You never share your actual guess in the actual word.
Okay. It's nice though that brands are starting to grab onto it because kung may freebies, maglalaro na rin ako.
At
kung
ngayon,
may libre.
ngayon alam ko na rin na meron palang mga incentives na ganyan.
Well, it's a good way to give ourselves some relief and relaxed time with all the stressful things happening around, and that's a good way to wrap up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.